You just tuned in to Up for Discussion.
There it is.
Can you hear it?
Okay.
All right. What's up, everybody? We're here this evening. Hopefully you guys got us. We've got 6 people already tuning in. That's awesome. We are just kind of tweaking things because we just got in from the shop. And so making sure that all the camera angles are correct. And that one's not. So give me a couple minutes. We'll be rolling here. But Lathan, this is episode 42. And I called this Stories from the Field and a Rut Report. We're going to kind of talk about those things, and we're going to touch on some things from Colorado. We got some awesome special guests this evening, and you want to
Stories from the Field.
Yep.
Well,
and that's how you say David's last name. So
say it for us. McCaw, like the parrot. Have you ever got that joke before?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right, Stories from the Field. As he gets cameras rigged up, everybody be thinking about, you're wanting just like our greatest stories?
No, just what we're seeing, how things are going in regards to progress, and
updates. Well, if we're talking whitetails, I seen this morning for the first time. I've seen young deer bouncing does around and stuff like that, but this morning's the first day that I saw like serious, mature deer chasing does, and I even seen one. I don't know what to call him. He's got a lop deer. I seen him last year and was all excited about him. I don't have no camera pictures of him, obviously, because I don't have no cameras to take pictures of him. But seen him again this morning. He's real evident when you see him because one of his ears is like he's damaged at fighting or something over the years. So he's got an ear that lops and hangs. But
he's special.
Special. But I seen him again, and he was with a doe and had like a couple of them pretty nice bucks, trying to aggravate him, take his doe. So he's doing the whole, anybody that's been in there in a rut and watched that's one of our favorite things to see, is a big buck with about 4 or 5 other bucks, and he's doing everything he can do to stay in between them and his doe. So that, when you see that, it's officially broke loose. So I would say the next, if you're listening to what I think, the next 6 days will be some of the best hunting we'll probably have. Obviously, I could be wrong, but I would say we'll have some good stuff broke loose. Well, it's already broke loose, but it'll just get magnified for several days here. So if you're going to hunt whitetails in Southern Illinois anyway, you better get out there in the next 5 or 6 days as much as you can.
Yeah, I know that. One way we keep our finger on the pulse of it all is by Doug Doty. Doug has, even this week, he's probably got 12 guys in, and they're all over the place. And because they are, it's a great opportunity for us to be like, to glean from him and say, what are they seeing?
Yeah.
How much movement are they seeing? I called him this morning and was like, I feel like things are getting close. What are you seeing? And he was like, actually, it was yesterday morning. And yesterday morning, he's like, it's not there. It's about to break over. And then today he was like, it broke over.
They killed several today, didn't
4.
They killed 4 bucks today?
Yep, 4 good bucks.
4 good bucks. Josh, did you see his text?
Josh shot one. Yep.
Just shot a big one this evening, he said.
So amongst our group of a few guys, we've already, there's 5 bucks that have went down today.
That's evidence, isn't it?
That's evidence.
That's for sure. So
the rut is officially, I would say, not at peak, but definitely making progress.
What we've been seeing has been just the younger bucks chasing.
Yeah.
But we've been seeing some big mature deer just out cruising, not really with those, or just kind of, just like they're observing, so to speak, looking around.
Yeah, I'd say the next 5 to 6 days, the big ones are going to be on their feet a lot, looking for that one this morning is with a doe. So
yeah, we're officially into it. So if you've got time to take off, better cash it in. So
as hard as he's guarding her and not giving her up, he'll be breeding that doe anytime.
Yeah, I would say 3 days, 4 days we'll be in lockdown. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Like starting lockdown phases.
Yeah.
So
We'll already be in Colorado when this is all going on,
Yeah.
unless we get snowed out.
Some guys dread what they call lockdown. That's what I kind of one of my favorite times.
I can't wait until lockdown.
It's one of my favorite times to hunt big deer is in, and I don't know where that terminology. I know where it comes from in the sense when a mature buck generally gets his doe. There's a time frame. Someone smarter than us could tell us, but he'll stay with her, for several days, and they're notorious for taking their does out into just obscure places. Everybody's hunting in the timber or hunting draws and bottlenecks, and in lockdown, the big 4.5, 5.5, 6-year-old bucks are somewhere out in the middle of a cornfield, cut corn, hiding in a little nook with a doe. And I say I love that because that's our favorite hunting is when I quit seeing them really cruising. I'm notorious for on purpose. And I think I said this last week on the podcast, but I'm notorious for setting in a spot where possibly I could kill him there, but more than likely I'm going to see him. I can see a half mile in every direction. I'm going to see him in the midday, go out with his doe and lay down. And then
it's on, buddy.
Yeah, then we're hoping for a breeze to cover our sound and a ditch to cut the distance, or the right type of terrain, a rolling hill that we can get to them, get close to them. And we've done it several times.
Yeah.
And it's fun to shoot a big deer from a tree. Don't misunderstand me. And that's how we probably get most of them. But gosh, it's hard to beat when you crawl down a ditch bank and out across the muddy cornfield and raise up out of the corn and shoot a big one off the ground from, 30
it's
or 40
it's like you killed him in his own element.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I told people, I was like, last week, me and Josh was talking about, I give away some of my secrets, so-called secrets, but there is something, and you can speak to this because we've done it together for years. And I don't know if you come from Colorado, so you guys are more prone to, I guess we should introduce these guys.
I thought you did. Sorry.
No. I was sitting here looking at him. You said to say his name. I think we did cover that. Dave McCaw.
Yep. And Kyle Martin.
And
they are on the show this evening. We're going to talk about Colorado hunting some, talk about what their experiences are over the last week, because Dave's been here in Illinois for the last week. And you came last year as well to hunt, didn't you?
It was 21, I think. Yeah. 21.
Okay. So I'd like to kind of get your take on what you're seeing and how the experience has been. And I'd like to know what Illinois, your experience in hunting out of state for Illinois is like in regards to what you see in Colorado even. Because I think me and Lathan, we've hunted for the last several years in Colorado, and I feel like the attitude towards out-of-staters is different here than it is there. And maybe I'm wrong in that, but it sure feels that way. And
I would say it feels that way too.
Yeah. And I'd like to talk about why that might be the case, get your opinion on it. And so I think this could be a pretty interesting conversation. We'll definitely try and keep it.
Let's make somebody mad.
Well, I was going to say we'll definitely kind of keep it short because I know there's food on the line here.
Oh yeah, well, we can do
on
that
the back
too,
end. So
I figured if you start talking out-of-staters and your opinions on stuff like that, somebody's bound to be frustrated at you, me, or somebody. But anyway,
you can't please everybody.
That's right.
Dave, lean into your mic real quick and just test it out because I got.
No,
is it not?
I don't hear him.
Let me. Oh, I see it. It's not.
I could hear it, but it sounded like an echo.
How about now?
Oh, there you go.
There you are.
Yeah, we hear you now.
All right, we got Dave's mic working.
So Dave can talk.
I just
can
open
hear
your
him
mouth
now.
in it.
Yeah.
Just heavy breathing.
That's right.
So I guess just let him kick it off. What do you? I mean, because Colorado's got a lot of public ground.
It does. It's got BLM and state land.
Probably more
national forest.
Yeah, probably more so than a lot of states, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think that's where, and I was talking to Kyle about this. I feel like that's where the resentment comes around here in our area. There's so many guys that are coming in, they're leasing up large tracts of ground, and there's guys that feel like all the time, oh, I'm losing something from the out-of-stater.
Well, it's exactly right, because you take a guy that he hunted it with his dad and his grandpa, and now he's in his 40s or 50s. He's been hunting there for, gosh, 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
And then it gets leased, and he shows up to it one day, and there's a guy there potentially from out of state.
Sure.
And he says, oh, I got this all leased. You're out,
and this seems like we walked you into a scenario that could be very bad, and we don't mean it that way, but
because you are an out-of-stater.
Yeah.
When you're here.
But my thing is, I think so many times we neglect to see the fact that out-of-staters bring so much to this state in regards to revenue. I mean, our shop would cease to exist were it not for out-of-staters.
To some degree.
Yeah. I mean,
that emergency stuff, just like last night, I stopped in here because I
Sure.
left my rangefinder sitting on the counter.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, it's for sure. And I love getting them out of a jam. If something goes down, it's good to be there for them and get them, because I understand what it's like. And I try to approach it like we started hunting out of state.
Yeah.
So I'd be a hypocrite if I was mad at a guy that came from another state to hunt here, when I'm like, I want to go to every state.
Yeah. That's
I want to hunt Alaska,
hunting,
and I want Colorado and Montana and Idaho. I want to do it all.
Absolutely.
That's like one thing I always thought about, like whenever me and Dave first started talking.
Lean into it real good.
Like whenever me and Dave first started talking.
Yeah.
And became friends. Hunting wasn't part of it. It was all, but it was ministry at the time and everything. But it was more of a, hey, you want a whitetail hunt? I want an elk hunt. So it's like,
Sure.
hey, let's try and help each other out.
Yeah.
I think that's more fun anyway than going paying somebody to take you hunting.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think there's just sometimes we overlook the fact that there's other people who are doing what we're doing, and they want to. Yeah. And that's their opportunity,
Yeah.
Well, I guess we should let him.
Sure. Yeah.
What's
been your experience?
I guess your experience. You mean here or there?
Yeah,
here.
It's a completely different world here than it is where I grew up. Like we're talking, you got state land. If you can't get on somebody's private land, you can go to the mountains.
Yeah.
And then you can do a spot and stalk. I mean, that's what I'm used to. Tree stands. It's weird just waiting there, hoping a deer's going to come in.
Yeah.
And so it's completely different when you're looking at all these fields like you guys are talking about, and you have no idea who owns them. It's not like something you can go out here and try, see what happens. I mean, obviously you have Hoosier National Forest over there that you could try, but I mean, it's a lot of research. It'd be like coming out there and elk hunting. I mean, you need to spend some time in those woods to understand where you're at, what everything's doing, especially during the rut.
That's true. And knowing where the phase is at and things like that.
Yeah, because there's tracts of ground here that, I mean, you can take 100 steps and be on the next person, and the next 150 steps you're on another person.
Yeah.
There's 10 acres and 15 and 20, and then you get in places where it's a lot of 40 and 80 acre lots. So, I mean, it's easier to maybe stay on a patch of ground, but you have to be weary of where you're at, and it's mostly where we'd be like 180 degrees opposite of Colorado, mostly private.
Right.
Everything's private, and I guess so. When you're here, you ain't. Of course, he's hunting with you, so he's probably not maybe dealing with a lot of other people. So, do you get flack for bringing an out-of-stater with you hunting from anybody? Well, you're an out-of-stater too, aren't you?
No, I'm still Illinois.
I mean, you live in.
We're buying a house, but I'm still Illinois.
Oh, okay. But you're thinking about going to Indiana or planning on going to Indiana. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Man, that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah. That's a whole new can of worms.
Yeah.
I think ethics goes into a lot of the hunting, no matter what state you're in.
I think so.
When I guided hunters, I mean, you'd have guys come in that were, I shot this elk, I shot this deer, I want to hide in the antlers, and they don't want anything to do with the meat.
Yeah.
And me, I'm a meat hunter. I mean, if something big walks in front of me, absolutely, I'm going to shoot it. But I mean, first and foremost is my family getting meat.
Right.
Yeah.
But you get those guys that I've seen it with bears, I've seen it with elk, deer. They don't take care of their meat, and it's like, why are you out here?
Yeah.
I mean, this is
it's a pure trophy
Yeah.
instead of, that's a bonus.
right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. I thought Kyle brought up an interesting point yesterday when we were talking. And if you come to Illinois, you're not coming here to shoot squirrels. You're not coming here to, there's one thing that guys come here for, and that's for a whitetail.
buck.
Yeah.
Whereas Colorado's not that way.
Yeah.
You
Guys come for antelope and,
you got moose, you got elk, you got pronghorn, you got
mule deer.
Yeah.
black bear.
We do have
mule
whitetail
deer.
in certain spots.
Yeah.
Bears, and I mean, you got all sorts of stuff to shoot out there.
Right.
And because of that, though, I think that would probably add to that argument that guys have here.
Yeah.
All the
And another thing, you can even narrow it down, because he just said it. They're not coming here for nothing else but a whitetail, and they're really not coming here for nothing else but a whitetail trophy.
Yeah.
Because that's what's here.
Sure.
You got guys coming from Louisiana and Arkansas and Alabama and Michigan and all Pennsylvania. Guys were in here, and they're all super good people. They're here. Maybe not all of them. I guess you can't stereotype everyone. Some of them may just come because they love to have a hunting camp somewhere they can get away and hang out with guys.
Yeah, but meat is not the reason.
But that's not the primary reason,
states.
because all those states are loaded with whitetails.
Yeah.
But they just don't have the high numbers of big whitetails like potentially that we have. So
for sure.
So ultimately they're coming for a trophy.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where it can rub people wrong, I guess, or
I don't know. I guess my thing is I always want to treat others the way I want to be treated.
Sure. But that don't happen all the time.
It doesn't, but I want to make sure that my mindset is
that you're doing it.
And that being the case, now that doesn't mean anybody can just tramp everywhere, or and I think there's so many of them that get that stigma because, guys come in, they've got their little spot, and or there's scenarios where there are one group of guys that make everybody else look bad.
Yeah. That happens a bunch.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
But I don't think the group can get stigmatized by a small number.
I mean, I've seen and met a lot of guys in the past that were just they hated out-of-state hunters, and they hated outfitters, and I could see points to their argument for both.
Yeah.
Does it mean they're right with both of them? No, but everybody that's hunting generally is just wanting to hunt and enjoy themselves, but there has to be, some type of what's the word I'm looking for? Like a common ground.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the common ground? Because it's what you're saying is the argument on both sides. You have to be able to understand a guy. It's like, well, man, I hunted there for 25 years.
Yeah.
And then someone drove up and said, hey, I'll give you $4,000 to hunt that property. And I mean, you can't be mad at a landowner when he's like, okay, what are you going to be here for 2 weeks out, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe out of the year or something like that at the most?
That's like where my dad grew up. All the ground that he hunted as a kid and everything, and heck, it's all subdivisions now.
Yeah.
So,
and my thing is the amount of money in revenue that's brought into communities because of it is massive. I think so many overlook that and don't see it. But like all the restaurants in town, they make a fortune whenever November rolls around.
Yeah, you can go in a restaurant right now uptown, any of them that's open.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? We're an hour and a half after dark, or
Yeah.
They've all came in, they've put their stuff away, they've cleaned up a little bit, and you go in there and it's like they're all out of state hunters sitting there eating pizza and burgers and fries and steaks and shooting the bull and getting ready to go to bed and get up tomorrow and do it all over again, you know. And I don't know. I've had a policy because, gosh, between me and you, how many acres of ground have we lost due to leasing or property sale? And
a lot.
Oh, yeah. Hundreds and hundreds of acres that we've been able to hunt through the years that we can't hunt now. And some of it's because it changed hands and their kids hunted or something, you know, and some of it's just because an out-of-stater come in and leased it. You know, and when he leases it, he's got 100% say so to tell you, stay off of it. You know, so we've lost a ton. But I was getting ready to say, I've just always had a policy. It's really been a good hunting strategy for me. I just call it move over.
Yep, that's right.
When someone starts throwing a fit about a spot or something, I just move over. And it's funny, when I move over, that's generally where I kill a nice deer. And I think it's because they've hunted my spot or the old spot that we hunted so much and so hard. I just move over to some obscure place.
Yeah, you move over and get the deer that they just ran
that they moved over, you know.
And I think part of it is the blessing of the Lord.
Well, sure.
I think whenever you have a mindset of, I'll give it to you, the Lord's like, yeah, and I'll bless you for it. Yeah. So.
I mean, that biggest deer out there was in a spot that we hunted for years that we can't hunt no more.
Yeah.
And the reason we didn't hunt there any that year.
No.
Because
we had permission.
Yeah. But there was a guy that started hunting it, and every time you'd go there, he was parked there, and I was like, gosh, you hate to go in on him. So we just didn't hunt there. And the evening I went there to hunt, obviously my mind, he was basically sitting right where we always sat.
Sure.
And I guess he had the permission to be there. So it's like, well, what do you do? You know? And
so we moved over.
So yeah, that evening I went around there and I was like, well, if he's in my spot, or if he's in the place where he parks, where we go in, I was like, I'm just going to go somewhere else. Well, he wasn't there. And that my mind said, because he's hunted that area so much, I was like, I'm going to go past where he sits. I'm going to walk an extra 3/4 of a mile to the back. And I killed the biggest deer of my life that evening.
Yeah.
And I'm satisfied. It's because that deer knows that other side of the property has gotten beat to pieces with hunting. So
well, the one thing I noticed, big difference between the out-of-state hunters here versus out-of-state hunters out there. Whenever I went out there last November, man, we're driving up in the mountains, and how many vehicles did we probably pass? Just guys riding around their trucks or on side-by-sides. Some of these side-by-sides are like, how'd you get all them big boys in there?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
that's all they do is they just cruise the mountain roads all day, just looking for something.
It seems like when we go out there, there's almost a level of community amongst them. Like, we're out here doing this together, even though we're not together.
Yeah.
Like
where we've hunted, that's
they're like, everybody will stop by and be like, hey, where are you guys from? And just checking in, and we're down here just about a quarter. If you guys want, come on down this evening and hang out with us. You know, stuff like that all the time.
And the locals in Colorado, when you come across a local, they're like almost hug you sometimes.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like,
so glad you're here.
Yeah, we love you guys out here. And we've had them like give us advice and be like, man, you know, all week long they've been down in that drainage down there.
Yeah.
And you go down there and they weren't lying. There was elk there. So I was like, that does not happen here. That does not happen.
Season out there.
Probably so.
Can see that more.
But you come here, and
is
it's
it like more
like there's during rifle season out there. There are so many hunters. It's ridiculous. Not like archery where it's a lot harder work. I mean, you're looking at guys that are out there during rifle season that are just, you know,
I guess that makes sense why they're
easy
cruising the roads. They're trying to get one spotted and just jump out
and shoot it. Yeah. I mean, your archery, especially like where I grew up down around Durango area. I mean, there's so many houses and everything going in that if you're going to archery hunt, you're way up in the mountains.
Yeah.
During the rifles, you've got more of the locals because they can hunt on the weekends. the families, that kind of stuff that can get out there and get on there. So the ones that have their spots go to their spots. Other than that, they're cruising up and down, hoping somebody spooks something or might spot a herd or something. You can go get on it. But
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of road hunters, which I mean, that goes back to like the 4-wheelers and stuff like that. You take those in. Then it used to have all the cases and locks and all that because people were that ethical about it. You didn't just right in there, shoot on your 4-wheeler. Now you've got to have all these locks and everything on there. And
well, your states went blue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
here we
because
got to
it's
have everything
awesome out
locked
there.
up, cased up.
Yeah.
You can't go down the road or on a 4-wheeler with a.
There was a
Or
time when Illinois was red, and you didn't lock up your guns. There was a time when Colorado was red, and you didn't lock up your guns. So
Hey, we were closer than we've ever been. What'd they say in the last? I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I think since like Reagan.
Well,
Yeah, the numbers anyway.
praise the Lord.
Not to get off on that. But turn this ship around.
For another time.
Yeah, for another time. We don't want to get on that discussion right now. But
So
I was getting ready to say that, like, when they're cordial out there, like when you run into locals, like if you run into a local here, probably 9 times out of 10, he's not going to tell you, hey, there's a big one staying down there and that such and such. If you'd go down there and set, that probably won't happen.
Yeah.
They're going to do everything in their power to let you not know where their big deer is at. But,
yeah, and they won't I mean, like down there, they don't exactly pinpoint it. There's guys that are this is my hunting spot. Don't get in it. If you find it by accident, I'm not going to tell you that's my hunting spot. Type of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's how I learned. I mean, to bear hunt was talking to guys that are like, I don't need to know your exact point, but I mean, kind of point me in the area of where I'm even looking because it's something new to me or whatever. I mean, elk hunting is one of those. I mean, elk can cover miles in a night.
Yeah.
So where somebody saw them, I mean, everybody's trying to get something down. And normally your rifle seasons, I mean, they're out there. I mean, obviously, if they can get a big bull or something like that down, but most of them are out there for the most part with locals are hunting for meat. And
I have noticed that a lot of locals, they're not out there for anything primarily other than meat.
I've talked to me and Josh talked to a guy. He's like, I'll shoot a bull if I can get him to come in. He said sometimes he told me he thought the bulls sometimes were easier to kill than the cows because you can manipulate them and get them to come in. He said that's why I do most of my calling. I just want to get one killed for the meat. Yeah. He's like, I can get a bull to come in. Sometimes, you can't get a cow to come to you like that. So he's like, but I'll shoot the first thing that gives me a good shot. He's like, I'm going to shoot it.
So Kyle, you're getting ready to go to Colorado to hunt, correct?
Yeah. We leave tomorrow when the wife gets off work.
Yeah. Push that mic up closer. I want to make sure people can hear you. Good.
Well, I don't talk very loud anyway.
You got a soft voice, man. But so what are you going to hunt?
Primarily going after mule deer.
Okay.
And we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it goes well. It went pretty good last year. But then it'll be over-the-counter rifle tag, which is last season for it. Last year for it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try and with a bow, though.
Well, from what I've heard, I mean, stuff's still changing, but I guess this year was supposed to be the last year for over-the-counter second and third season bull tags. And then from what I've heard is they're still doing it, but locals only.
Huh.
So it keeps changing around. I mean, growing up, I mean, you could go get a doe, a buck, bull, cow, whatever, over-the-counter, and you didn't have to do anything other than walk into the store and get it.
Yeah.
And now it's just changing to where everything's going into a draw. You've got to have more preference points for certain things.
Yeah.
And when they first mentioned it, it sounded more like everything was going to go to a draw, no matter what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then we got to looking a little bit more, and it's primarily the elk in general.
Yeah.
We'll still be able to get over-the-counter antelope tags for September or in August.
Yeah, because those things are so hard to hit anyway.
Yeah.
You do an archery. It's rough.
Yeah.
And it's
so
112 degrees.
So you're going to kill a mule deer.
Going to chase a mule deer. And
if you get a chance, you're going to try and kill an elk.
Going after an elk.
Yeah, we've got a couple bull tags.
Cool.
So
nice.
That's awesome, man.
And you say they're already dealing with decent snow out there right now?
Yeah, I talked to somebody back home. They said we got about 2 to 3 inches of snow already. And Wolf Creek, I think, had 18 or 19 inches in one storm the other day.
Wow.
That's
So
where the ski resorts at.
So
Yeah.
what does that do
So
to
they
the
break a
animal
leg.
movement?
Yeah.
So depending on how bad it is, I mean, obviously you have your bulls that go into their sanctuary and hang out there, but it mainly pushes your cows and calves and your satellite bulls, your spikes and stuff, pushes them down into the lower areas, pastures, lower meadows, stuff like that, where it's a lot easier for feed, a little bit less harsh on the weather-wise cold.
So the more mature bulls are more notorious for staying up in there somewhere.
They get in some rough spots.
That's interesting.
Like some spots that you don't want to haul them out in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And then you've got some bulls that, I mean, you'll see them come down and pass, and I've got some on camera that would pass from our neighbors across my dad's property and then go to the next property, and that's where they'd hang out. And then at night they just cross, and morning they cross back over. But they stayed in there, and then as soon as spring hit, they were headed back up to the mountains.
It's interesting that just the mature bulls will. It's like here with mature bucks. They're just a different animal than the rest.
Yeah.
I mean, you got your does and your 2 and 3 year old bucks, and you see them all the time. And then just like this week, all of a sudden, it's obvious what's happened.
Well, I mean, you hear people come in from time to time in the shop, and they're like, "I think all the big bucks are dead." Like
they're just smart.
Well, it's like they don't move. They do not move until it's like it's time to move.
And by being that way, they just harder to kill.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking about coyotes earlier, and I said coyotes have like a zero tolerance for humans around here. Like if they smell you, they're gone as fast as they smell you. If they see you, they don't stand around like a doe and snort at you. I mean, they're gone.
Yeah.
Just as soon as they know something's awry, it's like a zero tolerance for humans. And I think the more mature bucks kind of carry that too.
Yeah, I do.
Like a doe can smell you, and every hunter's been there, the blowing doe, that smells you or has seen you or knows something up. I've had them 15 minutes.
Oh yeah,
out there snorting and blowing and carrying on.
Shut up.
They'll leave. They'll leave, and you'll be like, oh, finally, she's shut up. She's gone. And like 3 minutes later, you see, here she comes back.
Yeah.
Stomping her foot, starts blowing again. And you're like, I've never had a mature buck.
Yeah.
I mean, like when he smells you, you've got seconds, and they may snort as they leave.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of big mature deer won't even snort. They just disappear.
Yeah.
And it's just
quiet.
Yeah, it's just like they just, I guess, because they've made it to maturity, but it's still not the same because a mature doe is standing around for 20 minutes sometimes and blow and snort. Now she'll keep herself in a safe place and maybe not get killed, but it's like, golly gee, what's the difference?
Yeah, their makeup is definitely different.
Yeah, how come a mature doe doesn't just leave, but a mature buck's gone? I'd love for someone to explain why one does and one don't. And then I thought that's interesting about the bulls, that all the cows and the calves will come down and the bulls will stay up in there in tighter spots.
It's like there's an element of wisdom that they have that others don't.
Over the females?
Well,
because nanny does can be hard to kill.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll move. They'll still move when the big bucks won't move.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the hardness to kill to them is because their eyes are so big. It's like you watch big nanny does walking through the woods. It's like you'll see them looking up in trees.
Sure.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's because they're privy to humans, or just because they've guarded a fawn so much that they've learned how to protect.
Dwight Klein says women got to have the last word.
I was going to say that, but I kept my mouth shut.
Oh man, Dwight went there. So
yeah, bulls normally have like bucks. I was watching bucks last year do the same thing. Right outside the subdivision, we had a big 6x7 buck that I got pictures of. His eye was tore up. He was limping. His leg was cut. Watched him that entire winter. The entire spring, summer, as soon as rut hit, or right before elk season started, and they started getting hardhorn, he was gone. You still got the little ones hanging around, little 2x2s and spikes and stuff like that. But
it's just
I haven't seen him.
I think that's the mystic around them, and why
Sure.
everybody. That's why people want to hunt them so bad. Is because they.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's a bigger deal
Mhm.
when you shoot a 4.5, 5-year-old whitetail buck. It's like it's a bigger deal.
Yeah, and it's not. Yeah, it's not just an easy thing.
No,
I told Dave before he came out here, I was like, because first time he came out, he didn't get anything back in 21. But I told him, I was like, man, it's a different critter. I mean,
Yeah,
they're
It's
what weird.
not like a mule deer where they just gonna run 20 yards and stop and look at you and like, oh, you're still there,
Yep.
and then that's when you get your shot. Whereas
Do the mature muleys are the
whitetail,
mature
he's gone.
muleys bad about doing that too, though? If you bump them,
They'll still jump out. I mean, depending on how bad you spooked them. I mean, but I've seen them where they'll jump out, they'll go 20, 30 yards, stop, turn around and look at you. We were out shooting out on this little property and had, I think there's like 11 of them, 11 bucks just walking by. My daughters were walking down to the house and they started blowing at them, but they were standing there. And my wife and I were just up a little ways from them, and they'd blow. Then they'd kind of just walk a little bit. But when we went right back down there in the same spot, they don't leave like whitetails. Like whitetails are like, all right, I'm out. And they're gone.
They
They
have
don't look
very
at you,
low
nothing.
tolerance,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
And mule deers they'll turn around and just whatever.
yeah, you very seldom ever jump a whitetail buck. I mean, you may see him, but you don't ever jump them. I don't know that I can ever remember one that I've jumped that, like walking, jumped him, that he stopped and looked back at me. Now I've spooked them from the stand.
Yeah.
And you can tell they're not for sure what's going on. They jump out there and stop and look around. Just like they're making their decision on which way to go, which is the safest route, or shoot at them, and they run out there and stop. But like just walking, jump them.
Now I've done
They're just
that
busting
before.
the brush, leaving.
Yeah.
I've done that before, but it wasn't in like a hunting situation. It's more like I was out to do something, and I wasn't a hunter at the time, and I'm just walking along to go do what I needed to do, and scares the crap out of me whenever this thing comes flying up out of the weeds.
Well, that was going to be my thing. They're also different when they're in velvet. They'll let you.
Yeah, they are.
They'll let around here. They'll let you pull up to a field if you're not too abrasive in your pickup. Shut it off, get still, and they'll just stand out there 150, 200 yards in a bean field and eat beans and let you take pictures and watch them in the binos. But it's like the velvet comes off. It's a whole nother animal.
Whitetail bucks, when they're in velvet, man, they do act more like how a mule deer kind of acts just in general.
Yeah.
Let you watch them, and now if you pull up on a field, unless he's locked up with a doe, he'll hold his ground.
Yeah.
I seen a nice, probably driving to the stand this morning, like 130-ish, nice 8-pointer, 125, nice buck. You could tell he had him a doe, and she's standing in the road. And I mean, he just stood in the ditch, and I stopped and looked at him and kind of halfway got between him and his doe. And he's like, not going to leave. He's like, I'm just standing here till you go on through. And he let me look. I stopped, looked at him until he got out of my headlights, just barely creeped. Once I got past him, I'm sure he jumped across behind me and got back with his doe. So, of course, that's where their brain breaks down when the estrus is, and that's pretty much that way with every race on the planet. Every mammal on the planet has that problem, it would seem.
I've had my brain broken a few times.
And then in turn to get the heart broken.
Heart broke, brain broke.
Wallets
possibly
wallets broke.
Wallets broke.
Oh man.
Whitetail don't come into towns. Like driving through you guys' towns, like we have bucks that are in Durango and
they don't do what mule deer do. It's weird. Because mule deer will be feeding in the middle of the day in somebody's yard. Here, you don't get
suburbs.
That. Like there will be deer that come into town.
But
it is like
there are places though, like Mount Vernon, Illinois. If you get on the north edge of Mount Vernon, Illinois, and all those houses, it's probably a norm to you, but I can be up in there. Like several years ago, I was doing remodel work up in there, and I'm talking not very far off the main drag.
Yeah.
And I was like, every day in these people's yard. But that being said, it was always does and fawns together in the people's yard. And I asked that lady, I said, you ever see big old bucks? She goes, oh, there's a little bitty fella comes up in there. I never do see big. And now he may come up in there looking for those does, but he's going to do it under the cover of night. But
yeah,
we'll get in Fairfield almost every year. You'll hear testimonies of people's like about this time of year is like a big buck chasing a doe right through.
Yeah, there was a pretty good one with his head cut off at Walmart last year.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
So that's right here. And then several years ago, like 2 years in a row or something like that, they jumped through the glass door at the Elks Club.
Yeah.
which is what is that place? A hangout, basically. Lodge, you know. I thought it was funny that it's like twice they went to the Elks. The bucks jumped through the front glass door of the Elks. So it's like, it's just a gentleman's club. They're wanting to hang out. Let them in. Let them hang out. But yeah,
I'm not sure it would classify as a gentleman's club.
But, well, whatever it is, I don't know what it is. I just whatever it is. But I figured
the ladies might be offended by that. So.
Are they allowed now?
They are, yeah.
Sorry.
We
need.
Yeah.
They jumped in the flower shop one time.
They did. Yeah.
Blacks.
Well, I was coming into Fairfield one day a few years ago and I was just driving across the bridge, just outside of Fairfield, and this buck's running down the bridge, and I'm like, "Don't do it, don't do it!" And you right off the side, and I'm like, "Well, he's done for."
Yeah. It's a long way down.
Long way down.
So in the last week, because you guys have been hunting pretty hard for the last week, right?
Yeah.
What are you guys seeing?
Well, so far it's primarily been immature bucks.
Yeah.
Young bucks doing the main chasing. But we have seen some that were, let's say, probably three and a half year olds.
I know you had said earlier that today was not great.
Yeah, we didn't see nothing until like on our way here, and there they are. They're all out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right out in the open.
Are you guys actively calling? Are you what's that look like for you guys?
I've been trying to call just a little bit, but I'm not wanting to overdo it.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think about it like calling turkeys, because you can actually just overdo it real quick.
Sure. There's a balance to that for sure.
They don't respond though. Even if you grunt at them, they can, like Friday we saw one that was a decent buck. Grunted at him a couple times, and he kind of just looked, but it's like there's no interest.
Yeah.
So far, there's been no interest out there where we've been hunting when we grunt or snort wheeze, nothing. They just kind of.
What are you seeing on that, Lathan?
I haven't called really any. I haven't called. I've just been setting. I've heard a lot of grunts, but it's mostly 2-year-olds and year and a half old, little fellers chasing does, grunting, bouncing does around. And it was all what you're talking about. Just, it wasn't chasing. It wasn't what I call chasing. It was like run up to a doe, run her for 40 yards and then just leave and go to look at the next one.
Yeah.
It wasn't that like, this is the one, like tongue out, I'm chasing her until I'm dead or until I catch her. You'll see that. I mean, if you stay out there long enough, eventually you'll see one that's like, he will not quit until she quits. And I
think there's times when noise is of great benefit and other times where it's a detriment to you.
Yeah. I mean, because we've made all kinds of noise that some people never make.
Yeah.
And had deer respond to it.
Yeah.
Breaking brush and hooking brush. And
there's guys that would be like, you can't make that much noise and have deer come into it.
Yeah.
And what we do sometimes in the stand, like we've been busted because of our movement by doing it. But I mean, we will get the biggest branches that we can get and we'll just be up there breaking them. And I mean, doing anything we can to make a buck think something is happening over there.
Not just that. I mean, they'll tear up a tree when they're mad. Whenever,
sure. Like there's been times we've, taken paracord and looped it over on a tree and just
pulling it and raking it against it, and deer show up.
Oh yeah.
Because you think if you've ever sat in the middle of a chasing frenzy where there's 2 or 3 bucks chasing a doe, and they'll just get in that pattern where they're just all over, like a 200-yard area just for minutes chasing in that same spot. It's the noisiest thing you ever heard. It's
so
like
loud.
brush over here, and then now they're over here. And I think we talked about this last week. I was like, there's no way for one person to mimic the sound, the amount of sound they make. And if you pay attention while that's going on, if you ever get in it, you'll see it happening. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here comes another buck.
Yeah.
Oh, and here's another buck. It's because they're hearing it coming to it. And I was like, if there was a way just to make that brush crash and fight and slash, I'm chasing a doe sound, I mean, I think that would be one of the most effective calls. But you can't do it because you can't be here and here in 15 seconds, 100 yards away. So you can't hardly do it.
Just the sound of one chasing a doe through the woods is like deafening. I mean, they're running through everything. Every stick's breaking, all the brush, all the leaves are crunching.
They'll go right through a place that a rabbit can't run through wide open, and just breaking brush. So
we're walking one of the places we're hunting, we're walking out there and there's just thorns and stickers everywhere, and they're like
raking on you.
Stuck. And I'm like, and I told him, I was like, you'd be surprised, a whitetail buck, he's just gonna run right through this, and
it's amazing what they can go through.
Make a minimal sound at times. Now, when it gets into a buck or two chasing a doe, it's like they lose their stealthy and they're just busting through stuff, making racket. But I'll tell you who helped me with that years ago as much as anybody, and I like to give credit where credit's due, is probably Bart Lawhorn.
Yeah.
Me and Bart, I was filming for him one time, and we sat one morning. It's 10 o'clock and we hadn't seen nothing. He's like, we need to make some noise, And he reached over in a tree next to him. It was about half dead, and he snaps a great big limb off, and he's raking it all over the tree all around him and breaking it, and threw it down. He sat down, and he said, let's see if that does something. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning, and we were sitting in one of our favorite places in there.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, it wasn't like 3, 4, 5 minutes. I looked out there, and there's a buck circling.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, be doggone,
Well, looks like they got a new tactic.
Yeah. I mean, he did. He's like, he said, we're either going to get something to show up, or we're going to scare that was his idea. He's like, we're going to get something to show up in this place, or we're going to scare everyone out of this 40-acre patch. And he was breaking. So I was like, I'm just up there. I don't even know if I filmed it, because I was like, what in the world? Breaking, smacking, throwing stuff at the ground as hard as he could, thumping the ground. When he'd break a big piece off, he'd throw it at the ground. And then one day, another hunt, we had a decoy up in the timber, a buck decoy, and I had rattled, and a real good buck was out there circling, and you could tell he wasn't seeing the decoy. He's like, throw them horns at that decoy. And I threw the horns out. Now, he didn't come in, but you could tell all of a sudden he was like, oh, got his attention. He looked, and you could tell it was like almost committed. Well, then a few years later, that deer that I rattled back after I missed him down there at that one particular brush, the first time we'd ever hunted there, if you remember, he was hung up out there like at 60.
Yeah.
And I threw my horns backwards out of the tree, and they hit the brush and clanked together back behind us. And probably maybe even he's seen the movement of it. And there he come to 30 yards to us. And it's like they come to that place and they need to see something. They need to hear something else, because a lot of people rattle a buck in or something. And then when he starts coming, everything goes ghost, quiet. And he's like, now, wait a minute,
I've heard one of the best ways for which I've never had success with rattling a buck, but one of the ways I've been told by multiple people, best way to rattle for a buck is have it on a long string.
Yeah,
3
I've
antlers,
seen,
just bounce them off the ground. Because, I mean,
it works,
but
but my issue with that is it doesn't work to like really aggressively.
Yeah.
It's just like clank, clank, clank.
Yeah. And I've done that more. I've tied mine together and dropped them down there. It sounds good, but it's more of a, like if he's over there 100 yards away.
Yeah.
Like for me, if I'm going to start out rattling, I want to make enough noise that there's about 300, 400 yards away, and pull him to me. So I guess if you had both, once he got to that where you could tickle him down there, I don't know.
I remember we had one years ago, and we were hunting over a great big weed patch, and he was moving out across it, and we were grunting and trying to get him to hear us. And there was a point where you were like, hey, and you just got his attention, and then we grunted at him, and that was all it took.
Yeah.
Like, it was like he heard something and turned his head towards it, and then we grunted.
I've had a lot of people tell me they grunt at a deer. He's like, he don't hear me, or he don't even pay attention. He don't even act like he hears it. And I think sometimes I want to say, I don't think he does hear it. I don't think he heard it. Now, if you grunt and they stop and turn, they'll do that. Listen, look, and then just go on. I think he was talking about that earlier. But if you got a deer out there at 150 yards in the woods, he's crunching leaves, walking, or in a weed patch like that one, and you go, boot. You know, he's like, I don't know how I stumbled on that, but I've got them like either whistle at them, get a loud enough sound that they stop, and when they turn them big radars towards you, and now blow one right in their face where they can pick it up, and then you can see them get their attention.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I've heard deer make noise that doesn't sound anything like a grunt. So I think whenever you scream at them or holler at them, all it does is alerts them to like, something's over there, and then you can do it.
Yeah, you get their attention, and then you blow that grunt. But I heard, I was telling him, I wish I had it on video.
People must not agree. Our viewership went from like 14 down to 6 on that. So.
they don't make that much noise. Hey, I mean, you know, you don't have to do it, and it ain't like I do it every time I'm in the woods.
Yeah.
You know, but there is a place where you can make noise and get deer to come to you. And I was getting ready to say, the other morning I was setting, and this pretty nice little 8-pointer come right underneath me, and he's real close to me, and there's a doe behind me. Been about a week. I told him he snore-wheezed, grunted, snore-wheezed, grunted. I think there was 3 grunts in it mixed in the snore-wheeze. I was like, 30 years in, I've never heard that sound. I've heard snore-wheezes. I've heard grunts. But he did that. He went at this doe. And I was like, well, I'll be doggone. I was like, I have never heard a buck do that sequence like that. I've heard them snorting, chasing each other, like blowing as they're chasing, and it mad at another buck. I've
Speaking the language of love.
Yeah, I've heard them. Well, she didn't like it. And he just
sometimes they don't, man.
Yeah. But I was like, I've never heard that. I'd be interested. Anybody can get in the comments. Have you ever heard a snore-wheeze mixed with like there was 3 grunts in it?
Wow.
3 grunts. He's like, he came out of the snore-wheeze grunt, snore-wheeze, and it was never that, you know, that thing was more just like that at her.
I'm convinced that they just don't hear that well.
Yeah. They got to have them big ears turned the right direction.
Yeah. Lathan and I set up in the stand last week together, and there was one underneath us. And the whole time it was underneath us, we had a conversation. And I mentally was like, I don't want to get quiet just because it was not a deer that we were interested in whatsoever, a small buck. But I just wanted to see, will he respond to us having a conversation up here? And he didn't pay one bit of attention.
No, it's like we were in the stand the other day, and young buck came by, and we're just sitting there whispering back and forth. And he's probably 20 yards away, and he didn't. He's just looking around, don't care.
Yeah.
He didn't pay nothing, had no idea we were there.
I just don't think they register noise like we think they do sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think they hear. You know, I think they hear good. I think when those ears are turned the right direction. Now, that same morning, it was real calm that buck did that, and there was a doe about 25 yards out in front of me, and I was sitting on my little stand, and I did like this. She wasn't looking at me, so I kind of reset how I was sitting, and just my fabric moving, I seen her go, you know, and I seen her perk up, and I was like, she heard that.
See, I think that's almost a different tone to him.
Yeah, maybe it was,
like
but it was so
leaves.
calm in there. I was like, man, she heard that. So I started experimenting. I was sitting there, and when she wouldn't look at me, I'd take my hand on my clothes, and I'd see her again. You could tell she heard it, and she was 15, 20 yards away, which is close. But I was like, I can just hear that.
Yeah,
you know.
She
could pick that up just like that. It never did spook her, but
was
you
it
could
Todd Pricksnick or whatever his name was? he developed something like that before he passed away. And
That
what it was,
brush
yes,
thing.
and it was like, it made like almost crinkling
Yes.
leaf sound.
Yeah.
And
I
in
remember
it, he
when
also had it to where it was like that you could rattle and you could make the leaf sound.
Yes.
And he had really come across something, I think, that probably would have gained some major traction.
Yeah. Somewhere we got our hands on one. I was like, this would work.
Yeah.
I was like, I think this makes the brushy, crashy, leafy sound like when they're chasing. You could pitch it and try to get the sound to go different directions, mess with their head. He also made that telescoping grunt call. And I was like, that he's on to the same thing. I feel like that he realizes they don't hear you.
Yeah.
They don't hear you when they're out there at 200 yards. They don't hear you. And people think, well, he didn't even listen to me. No, he didn't hear you. Now, if he obviously, like I said, turns and looks at you, remember he had that grunt call that you could grunt. You don't want it real magnified when they're just 50 yards over. He made it telescoped out where he could project it way out through the woods and get their attention.
And I think you get a depth of sound, just like you do with a bugle.
Yeah.
That
it changes.
Yes, it does.
Resonates different.
That's right.
Well, and your does are listening because they got fawns to protect.
Right.
Sure.
Bucks aren't listening for that. And from the way you guys are making it sound, is like these bigger bucks, they're not looking for that little grunt or something like. They're looking for action.
But here's the thing, depending upon the demeanor of the buck, that can change.
Yeah.
Like there's bucks that, I mean, dude, you could be the deepest, throatiest thing, and they're like, yeah, come on. And they'll move in on you because they're willing to fight. And you've got others that if you go deep and throaty, like they are out quicker than you can get it out of your mouth.
Because either they've had their butt whooped a time or two, or they're just older and they're realize, you know what, that's for the young guys. They can
not as spry as I used to be.
Yeah.
And just some of them, people that have hunted them long enough and really, you realize that some of them just have different personalities.
They do.
Some of them are more prone to want to fight, and some of them are just not. But I think they all hit a place, and I just always lean to the aggressive side.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
well, the thing is,
aggressive guy.
Yeah.
it all comes down to what are you hoping for? And I think most of the time what we're hoping for in that period of time is something that is aggressive back.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a mature deer. It's going to be something that we're interested in. I mean, not necessarily the biggest buck, but something that's mature. And those are the ones that seem to respond to that. So.
Yeah, when they hit that certain time, it's like I'm going to sit out there all year and be quiet until now.
Yeah.
And I'll be quiet all morning, some mornings, and the next morning I'm like, we need to let's make some noise up in here.
Yeah.
And you make noise and it works. It don't always work. But man, we've had it work a bunch.
We have. I think it's interesting. Lathan's got a different style than me because whenever the wind's blowing, I'm like, I don't care to make noise. And you're like, all right, it's quiet. Let's make some noise. And it's like, it's like we have different, to me, I understand where he's coming from. They're not going to hear you very well when the wind's blowing. But I also feel like when you do get their attention during the wind, you're also covered up by the sound.
Yeah.
Like when they come in and it's quiet, I mean, if a mouse farts, they're like, I heard something,
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, I think people do. I think a lot of us, we've hunted with dogs for years. Coon hunted and coyote hunted with dogs.
Not deer, though.
Right. Coon hunted and coyote hunted with dogs. Rabbit hunted.
I'm just clarifying to
but
those that
you have rabbit dogs don't work as good in this scenario because you're generally hunting close to them. Coon hounds, coyote hounds can get out of hearing quick.
Yeah.
And if you've been coon hunting or coyote hunting and you got the wind wrong, you could swear. I was like, man, they're getting out there. We're going to have to move. Them dogs are a mile, almost 3/4 mile away or a mile away. And maybe your dog trees a coon and the wind's in your face. You take off walking. You're like, oh, there he is.
Yeah.
He wasn't 150 yards away from us. He sounded like he's 3/4 mile away. I just had this happen today. It was windy for me this morning. I was sitting in an open place no timber really, a lot of wind coming out of that northeast, and I was sitting there, and 3 coyotes were going out across the corn, probably 200 yards away. I was like, man, I'll call them things down here. So I squeaked and squealed. You could tell they didn't hear. I yipped and howled, like loud, howled at them. Never even picked their head up and looked my way. The sound wasn't, I couldn't get it to them.
Yeah.
And they're 250 yards away, but I probably had a strong 15 plus, maybe more gust and wind, that they just couldn't hear it.
Sure.
I was like, well, I ain't getting any louder than that, So I just let them go on. But I like that frosty, calm morning. I was like, well, I'm going to make some noise because I'm going to touch as many as I can touch this morning, because there's just that much more in every direction going to hear you.
Sure.
I'm not hindered by the wind.
Morning, it was foggy as all get out. He couldn't see 15 yards
Yeah.
in front of the stand, but the stand I was in, I was like, there's bucks out there in that field.
Yeah.
I don't know why you can't see them. They're there. They're chasing a doe.
Yeah.
Here comes 2 more.
I don't like the fog.
Yeah.
Man, I'm not a fan
I think
of the
bucks
fog.
like the fog.
I'm sure they do, but it bugs me not to be able to see.
Yeah, you don't see them until they're like right there.
Yeah. I'm just geared to sit in places I can see, especially during the rut. But around here, fog's generally gone by, 7:30, it's out of here. But it's not like the mountains where you can be fogged in all day and you can't see nothing, can't glass for nothing. But it's generally burn off here by 7:30, 8 o'clock. But still, I'm like, what's out there? I don't know. I can't see, But,
could be Nessie.
Nessie's out there and I can't see it. My imagination says they're out there and I just can't see them. I know they may not be, but my imagination gets me.
So you guys got one more day before you are you going to hunt Friday morning?
Yeah.
And then you're going to head out.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think
Down
tomorrow
to the
morning,
wire, bud.
hey, I think tomorrow morning will be good for you guys. I really do.
I've been praying about it. I'm hoping that it is.
Yeah.
It's a long way to come. And I mean, I'm still going to send meat home with him.
Yeah.
Regardless, but it's better if he gets it himself.
Sure. It always is.
What's the wind? Is this wind's going to be out of the north again tomorrow?
Northeast.
Northeast.
Yeah, northeast is what they're calling for.
40 for the low.
Man, I'm ready for some 30s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, once you get in the 30s and get those good frosts on, it's like
I love hunting the 40s though, but and it seems like they do good. They do. They move good and rut good in the 40s.
Like yesterday, where it got up in the mid 60s. Yeah, I'll take a 40-degree morning following that any day.
Yeah. I just always say that 40, I guess it'd be like that magic 35 to 45.
Yeah.
It seems like the rut really rolls good in that. It's going to roll anyway, but I mean, if they're hot and chasing, they just don't cover as much ground. Probably
that's the thing. I don't think they cover as much because
they get hot.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they're basically running around with a coat on. So
yeah, one year I was by myself. I don't remember where you was because we were still filming like crazy.
I was probably doing something awesome.
I'm sure he was. But I went to this place and sat, and it was like horrible. It's like what you don't want during the rut. It was like November and it's 75 degrees. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So, I'm sitting in this place, and I remember this pretty decent buck was chasing a doe. I mean, just chasing his heart out, and they would chase into this brush and they would chase right back out. And there was a big pool of water. It wasn't a pond, but just a corner of a field that holds water. And it's 6-7 inches deep in places. They would run out into that water and stand and drink. And that doe would actually almost put her belly down in the water. She's so hot trying to get cooled off.
Yeah.
And one time, I've always heard of that tongue hanging out.
Sure.
Have you ever seen the limp tongue buck where their tongue looks like something's bad wrong with them?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he chased so long, his tongue hung so far out of his head and it just looked dead. Like after you shoot them and their tongue's hanging out, it's just hanging and flopping over his nose as he's running, just like it's dead. And I was like, what is that? And it was, I guess he's just so hot and he chased so long, his tongue just hanging out of his mouth. And they'd run and get a drink of water. and then chase back out in that brush and run back to that. I bet they did that 4 times. I was like, man, I wish he was a shooter, a bigger buck.
Gene Simmons of the buck world.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, it was funny looking. At first, I thought, what's the guy hanging out of his mouth? He got something stuck in his mouth, and it was his tongue. It was stuck in his mouth. Well,
right.
I think, I'd say anybody that's listening, man, I'd say the obviously the big deer, they're getting hit, getting shot. Several of our friends have got them today.
Yep.
I had a morning where I seen at least 6 bucks. Probably 4 of them were nice, and one of them's one I'd love to get. Chasing does, so it's on.
Yep.
And then I'd say we get
cash in your vacation or quit your job, one or the other.
Yeah. I hope you have stacked your days where you can get out there.
Yeah.
That's why, like, whenever I pre-schedule my days, I pre-schedule them all regarding hunting.
Oh yeah.
It's like, well,
we
no
used
one
to
else is
do
putting in for it,
that.
by golly, I'm gonna snatch it up.
We're a little bit more where we can just get her done now, but we have to have a discussion here in the next several days. Are we gonna sneak out of here any?
I would say there's a chance. If you haven't gotten your stuff fixed up yet, sorry.
No.
You guys got to hunt too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
man.
we'll do it. We'll get them taken care of, but there may be some short days for us in here, and then lots of tags and labels that we have to come in and fix the next day.
Yep. Yep. Even if it means early mornings or whatever.
Right.
But
Have you guys noticed, like, during the, like you're saying, it's breaking over, if there's better like morning or night, or do they, I mean, because mule deer obviously will go, I mean, you'll catch them any time of the day when they're moving around and stuff like that, and not even in rut. I mean, you can just catch them out.
You can get some big deer doing some weird things in the middle of the day around here. Now, your typical hunter's going to hunt, daylight to 10:30, and he's down and going to go get dinner and come back at 1. There's lots of guys, or I'm sure there's guys who no, I sit all day, and there's lots of guys that do sit all day. But you can have that happen in the middle of the day if you stay there. I think during the rut, I have some of my best hunts, in the morning.
Yeah,
cold,
I would say
cold, cool mornings. I have some crazy hunts. But then again, I go back through all my log of memory of years of hunting and seeing good deer and rut activity. Have a lot of it of an evening too. So, the most of it's morning and evening, obviously. But
I would say a lot of my experience is mornings, they will respond better. It feels like to me, like
I think I've probably rattled more deer in the
yeah,
morning.
I think in the mornings they seem to respond.
Yeah.
I think the reason why is because you're coming out from all that night. They don't know where everybody's at, pinpoint. So you get to rattling, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to check that out.
I'm gonna go check that out. It's like this morning, like I was like, nothing. I sat in there, I was like, and I can see good. I can see a long ways in several places. And I generally, if they're not on the ditch that I'm on, they're on the other one or something, It was nothing. I was like, are you kidding me? And then probably 40 minutes after daylight, I was like, they're everywhere, chasing all over that. I don't know what happened, where they was, but it's like they come off them ditches everywhere chasing does. There was some chasing this corner, some chasing in this corner, and bucks, just decent bucks. Like when I say decent, 2-year-olds that are good future bucks. It's going to be nice, big, up and comers. They're just walking from chase to chase, and the nicer. I don't think that first group. There was 2 nice bucks there, but I think they were just 3.5-year-old bucks. But one of them was pretty nice.
Yeah,
pretty good buck. But
did you scent thief it up this morning?
I did.
Yeah,
and I'm not a believer yet.
Well, that's all right. Are you a believer in it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually took my nephew out bear hunting. And before that, I went bear hunting, and I had scent thief on, and the wind was blowing right into her face, and she walked right into me 100 yards.
Yeah.
When I was hunting with my nephew, I had a doe come in maybe 10, 15 yards behind me. And she didn't know I was there, and the wind was blowing in her face.
Yeah.
She didn't know I was there until I picked up my phone to try to take a picture of her, and she saw the glare, and then she was trying to figure out what I was, but she kind of just hopped off and then turned around and looked at me again. And
I'm going to say the jury's out for me. I'm not saying one way or the other yet.
You mentioned something the other evening on a text that you were like scent thief legit. I think is what you said.
That's I had a hunt where I had 40 deer around me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say around me, I mean on every single side. And I was sitting 6 feet high because I was right on the edge of a bluff. So even though I was 6 foot high in the tree, it felt
Much
like I was
higher than the
way
field,
higher. Yeah. And all around me on that 6 foot side, I mean, the deer were everywhere around me and they could not pinpoint me. Like, and when I say they couldn't pinpoint me, they weren't smelling me and responding to me like I was a human.
Mm-hmm.
It was like they were smelling something and then it went away and I can't smell anything. Like it was working and killing their scent.
The only thing that I killed the ability to smell this morning was on myself.
Well, I think if it shuts your smeller off, it ought to shut theirs off.
I'm telling you, what I was doing was I saw that they were going downwind of me. So I just started, while they were going downwind, I just started spritzing it. Yeah, I spritzed it all the way while they were walking downwind. And they'd get downwind and they'd key up for like just a second. But it wasn't like they were keying up on a person. They were keying up on a scent of some sort.
Like, I don't know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were almost instantly like, nothing. Yep.
They couldn't do it. They couldn't hit it again.
They could not. And
so you're, when you say jury's out, you're still undecided?
I just want to see. I want more of those experiences before I'm like, yep, I'm going to give that a thumbs up.
I haven't even used it yet, but I've used so many things over the years, and there's times I was like, it works, and then next time I was like, it didn't work.
Well, but both of us are using that hex gear now, trying it out and everything. Not 100%, believer in it yet.
Man, to me, that seems gimmicky.
It does.
What's the story behind it? Because I don't even know.
It's like the thread.
It's like
it's supposed to work the same as like a microwave does. It doesn't let
like the RF Faraday cage that blocks the electromagnetic. Now they've proven birds can see electromagnetic fields, and that's how they're able to migrate. But they haven't been able to prove yet if like deer and other animals like that. I mean, they say predators kind of can, but
you can watch videos on it and stuff like that. I mean, but again, it's one of those that you're like,
yeah,
the situations don't line up. I mean, I've played around with. I mean, cows can see it. I walked out in a pasture. I'm going to see what they'll look right at you and walk around. A horse saw me today when I was walking through with it. So I'm not 100% sold on that one.
Yeah,
but the scent thief this year, I used it a lot, and I actually didn't spray it in the air. I just sprayed my clothes and who was with me.
Sure,
we just sprayed everything down and went. Because I was like, let's see if it actually works.
They put such a strong scent in it.
Yeah, it's like
that. I'm like, I don't like that.
Or something.
Yeah, it's very. It reminds me of the Fresh Earth wafers, but like times 10.
Yeah,
and because of that, I'm like, it's a little off-putting to me, to the point to where I'm like, do I want to spray this on my clothes? To me, if they were wanting to sell it better, they would tone that down a touch.
Because I think it would be more likely to be more believable for up close type stuff, being able to shut an animal's nose off.
Yeah.
But for further distances, all they're going to smell is that added fragrance that they by law had to put in there.
I just know I
the
had
further
40
it goes
head
out there,
me.
The parts per million break up, and it's like, man, he's got to get a pretty good.
Now they're just smelling.
But that's where when you spray yourself down, you should be covered, and then that's part of the reason why I was spritzing it. I wanted to see how they responded to it as it's drifting.
I've got
a
spot that I need something like that. I've got a spot that's dynamite, but if they ever get in between me and the river, which I'm right on the river, so it would be a close thing. And most of the time, if it's a big buck, I'm going to shoot him before he gets there, because the way that stand's set up, he can't get through there before I can get a shot, generally speaking. But the problem I have there sometimes, if I sit there, if there'll be a nice buck down in here and does that I want to let go through there first, and if they bust, they mess him up.
Well, that was my deal there.
Yeah,
I knew that those does had to get past me in order for the good buck that I was after to get close enough.
And that's where the other night when you said that, about you put it legit. I immediately thought that spot because that's the one spot that I can kill a good deer there almost every year if I set it enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I set it one time this year, went in there and set it, had a real good hunt, seen several decent bucks, nothing I wanted to shoot, but several decent bucks. I got a rope scrape there. They've pounded that.
Mm-hmm.
But Josh does have a camera on that one. I just haven't had the deer show up to that. But that don't mean he's not in there. He just hadn't come in front of that camera. But man, there's one thing about that place when they get in between. The wind to be right for the whole woods.
Mm-hmm.
But if they get in between me and the river, they nail me. And it bugs me because I'm like, well, last year, one time, there was a decent buck that I was thinking this might be the one, and does got in between me and the river, and they keyed up and they took off. And of course, he left with them, so I never even got to make the decision.
He never knew you were there.
No, he didn't have a clue. He just knew those does come back with their tails flagging, and I don't remember if they snorted and blew a little bit. It was just enough. He's like, well, I ain't going up there, I'm going with them. So,
well, and they've got the wafers too that you can hang in the tree that has that smell. You can dip them in your field spray or spray them down or whatever, and then hang them in the tree too. So,
I mean, if it legitimately works, I want like 2 or 3 gallons to scatter all around me, and they come in there and it just shuts their nose all off, and they're walking around like what happened.
I had read an article one time. It was about a guy that was an avid deer hunter, loved whitetail hunting. His problem was he was a diesel mechanic, and no matter how much he washed and scrubbed, he could not get the smell off of them, and the deer always busted him. So what he started doing, he was taking the used diesel filters and just taking them out and placing them in certain areas throughout the woods.
So they got used to
that smell, so he could actually enjoy hunting.
I think that's a legit thing.
I've thought about. I was like, I wonder if you went.
So it makes me think I should take some automotive paint out there. And
I wondered. I thought one time. And I think I talked to my Uncle Brad about this. I thought it'd take a lot of dedication, but I was like, what if about every 3 days you went to your favorite stand during the summer, took your clothes off, changed at the stand, throw your clothes in that stand, come back 3 days later after work, take your clothes, take those clothes home to wash them, throw your new clothes that you wore all day in that stand or on the platform, or hang them right there, or throw them on the ground of a tree or something. If you did that every 3 or 4 days all summer long,
would they get used to it?
Then could you just go sit there, and when they come through there and smell you, they'll be like, well, I smelled that all summer. Whoop-de-doo. Would they do that? It's kind of the same.
I know guys that have put almost like scarecrows in their stand.
Yeah.
I have seen videos where they've done that.
Yeah.
Put scarecrows.
Put a scarecrow right in the middle of the food plot, and it's dressed in camo, and then they have a platform built on the back, and then whenever
they take him down and they stand.
They go stand on it.
But I'd get tired of standing like this, though. It'd be my problem.
Drop them.
Oh, man.
Well,
all right, guys, I feel like we've covered enough time, and I appreciate you guys coming on. Is there anything that you guys want to touch on before we shut down the show?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Are you looking forward to the changes that are happening in Colorado? Do you think it's going to be a positive?
I don't know.
Yeah.
They had one on there that they're trying to get rid of the mountain lion hunting and all of that. And you've got one side that's complaining about our herds dropping with the elk and the deer, and they're not seeing as much. Part of that, I feel, is all the people that are moving in want to be in the mountains.
Yeah.
So you're constantly in their area, pushing them further up in the mountains, which is part of it. But I mean, our predator population, that's what I was telling Kyle, I was like, man, it's weird that your biggest predator out here is a coyote. I mean, we've got bears. I mean, if you do it right, you can get 2 bear tags a year out there. And if you're doing private land, I think you can get like 2 or 3 or 4 of them, something like that. Mountain lion is a certain time frame, and they have a certain number on them. So you have to call in every night, check, make sure that the quota hasn't been met. Bobcats, they have a season for them.
Have you killed a mountain lion?
I haven't done a mountain lion. My cousin goes almost every year.
Yeah.
And his buddies and stuff. And they use dogs and chase them. And
I'd like to kill a mountain lion, but I don't want to do it with dogs.
He wants to do it with his bare hands.
That's right.
Strangle that thing. You strangle
Why
a mountain
won't
lion
you?
out, I want to give you a high five
Yeah.
with extras. I don't know what the
Did you
extras
see
would be.
that clip of that guy that was he was calling elk the other day, and one came right up to him. He videoed it. It walked all the way around him, and finally was like, "Yeah, I'm out." Yeah,
We've never got to see one, have we, out there?
no,
I'd like to see one.
we've had several up close bear contacts, but
Yeah. Haven't got to see a big cat yet.
me and Josh had a color phase bear about 12 yards this year, so like real pretty blonde bear.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, those ones are rare, but they're beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah. Well, guys, we appreciate you guys coming on the show. For everybody that's still watching, we appreciate you guys watching. And we want to make sure that if you guys get a chance, like, share, comment, help us grow this thing. We appreciate it. So until next week, thanks a lot. And this has been Up for Discussion.